Hi everyone, I'm going to go through problem sets 7 and 8 in inheritance. These are problems involving X-linked traits. And before we go into our problems, there's some things we have to remember. We are talking about an XY system of sex determination. Now, what does that mean? That means that we have X's, we have Y's, and we're looking at combinations of those. So we can have XX or XY. We do not have YY. That doesn't work. Okay? When we look at it, XX is biologically female. XY is biologically male. And again, YY doesn't work. We don't get life. Okay, so this is for humans. We're looking at our XY system. Now for problem set 7, we started with fruit fly genetics. Fruit flies work on the same XY system we do. So in fruit flies, eye color is a sex-linked trait. Red is dominant to white. Now that means that we can have different chromosomes. And the first thing I want to do is look at my chromosomes. Okay. I can have a X chromosome that has the dominant allele. I can have an X chromosome with a recessive allele, or I can have a Y chromosome. The Ys do not get the dominant or the recessive allele. It's not on that piece of DNA. When we look at the chromosomes, the X chromosome is a big, long chromosome, whereas the Y chromosome is much shorter. Okay, they contain different information, and you can see that just based on size, there's a little less that we could fit on that one. Okay, so we have the possibility of having X with the dominant allele, an X with the recessive allele, and a Y. Those are the chromosomes. Now I can look at my different genotypes and combine them, and we just use distribution to do that. I've combined this with everything. Now I look at my next one. Those are my different genotypes I can produce with these different chromosomes. The next thing I have to do is I can look at my phenotypes. You can see here that there's two X's. Two X's means female. So this one is female and red. Just like before, when we have the heterozygote, our dominant one takes control. So this one is going to be female and red. Now, if I look here, the Y does not have an R on it. It can't. We don't call this homozygous or heterozygous. This is hemizygous. Okay, hemizygous, half, hemi. And in this case, it has the capital letter there. That's our dominant allele. So this is going to be male and red because it's XY with a dominant allele. Next here, I have two X's with two little r's. Two X's means female, but the two little r's, they are recessive. That means white. Here we have X and Y. That means we have male. And a little r means the recessive. So this is white. So when we're talking about the red and white eyes for our fruit flies, we can have a female red female red, male red, female white, and male white. Okay, now let's look at our questions. It says, what are the sexes and eye colors of flies with the following genotypes? There we go, a little clearer. I have an X and an X, that's female, and it's heterozygous, and just like we've done with our simple monohybrid crosses, this is going to be the dominant phenotype, so it is red. X and Y, that tells me this is male. It has the dominant allele, so that means it is red also. X and X, that's a female. And 2 of the recessive, that means it is white. Next, we have X and X. That's female. 2 dominant, that means red. Next, we have XY, so that's male. Then I look at my R's, and I only have the recessive, so that is white. For the next problem, we're going to go the opposite direction, and we're given the phenotype, and we need to do the genotype. Okay? Easiest thing to do is to start with the sex. Is it male or female? So here I have a white-eyed male. I know that a male has to be an X and a Y. It's white-eyed. Well, there's only one X, and this has to be on the X chromosome. White is recessive. Next, I have a red-eyed female, and it's heterozygous. Female means XX. Heterozygous red means one of each. White-eyed female. Female means that I have X, X. And white-eyed, the only way to be white-eyed is to have 2 of the recessive. So that means a little r here and a little r there. And a red-eyed male. To be male is XY, and then red eyes means the dominant allele. Okay, let's move on to doing some crosses. We'll start with this one, number 3. Number 3 says that show a cross of a white-eyed female and a red-eyed male. Now, they happen to give the genotypes here, but even if they hadn't, we can figure those out pretty easily, because to be white-eyed, the female has to have 2 recessive alleles. And with the male, whatever it is whatever we see, the phenotype, that's what the genotype is. So we're going to cross a female that's like this with a male that's like this. First thing we have to do is determine our gametes. Now, if you remember, the gametes are the eggs and the sperm, and that's what we put on the outside of our Punnett square. Now, this here acts as one piece. It all stays together. We cannot separate that X and that R. This is one piece. It stays together, and I can't separate them. This stays together. And then, of course, we have this one. Now, if we were doing this before, and I had RR, both lower cases, and I had something like this, you would know exactly what to do. In this case, it's the same. It just looks more complicated. These whole things stay together. So one gamete is X with our recessive trait, or recessive allele. The other is an X with a recessive allele. If I look here, the chromosomes that are available are an X with the big R or a Y. And like all our Punnett squares, we just start bringing the information together. And I put the capital first just because it's easier for my brain to figure out what's going on. The next thing to do is to determine from these genotypes, what are the phenotype? Well, here in this first box, I have 2 X's, that means female. I have heterozygous, that means red. I have an X and a Y for box 2, that means it is male. I have a lowercase, that means white. And the Y doesn't have anything. Box 3, I have an X and an X, so that tells me again female and heterozygous, so that is red. I have an X and a Y for box 4, so this is male. I have a lowercase r, that tells me this is white. So if I look back at my question, how many are white-eyed male? Well, these are white-eyed males, so that's 2 out of 4. White-eyed females, 0. Red-eyed males, 0. And red-eyed females, 2 out of 4. Okay, let's look at the next one. Show a cross between a pure red female and a white-eyed male. So a pure red-eyed female, and pure red, that means they have to be the same, crossed with a white-eyed male. So there's male, and that tells me it's white. To do my cross, I have to determine my gametes. This stays together, this stays together, that, and that. So I have X with a big R, X with a big R, X with a little r, and a Y. Now I look, I have 2 capital X's, 2 X's there, so that's female, heterozygous, so that's red. This one is male, and it's red. This one is female, red, and this one is male, red. Okay, so the genotypes of our parents. Oh, we had a female like this, and a male like this. Of them, how many white-eyed males did we have? Well, all of our offspring have red, so there is 0. White-eyed females, 0. Red-eyed males, 2 out of 4. Red-eyed females, 2 out of 4. All right, let's see what the next one has for us. Show a cross of a red-eyed female that's heterozygous. Okay, red-eyed female heterozygous. Female, red, but heterozygous. And a red-eyed male. Notice they didn't tell us that it was heterozygous or homozygous because they don't need to. When we're talking about X-linked traits in males, we only have one. It says red-eyed, so it has to be the capital. We'll show our cross. We put one parent along the side and one parent on the top. And then we bring everything together. Now I can look here. I have 2 X's for female and red. XY tells me male. The big R tells me red. XX is female. Red because it's heterozygous. XY tells me, do the right symbol here, tells me male. The little r tells me white. Now I can look back at my problem. What are the genotypes of the parents? Well, we had a female parent that had the capital and lowercase because it's heterozygous, and the male parent, XY, with the big R for red. How many of the offspring are white-eyed male? 1 out of our 4. White-eyed female? Well, our females are both red. Red-eyed male, 1 out of 4. And red-eyed female, 2 out of 4. What if in this cross 100 males were produced and 200 females? Okay. How many total red-eyed flies would there be? So if we had 200 females, we could expect that to be divided by these 2 boxes. That would mean I'd have 100 like this and 100 like this. If I had 100 males produced, I would expect that to be divided in these 2 boxes. So I'd get 50 like this and 50 like this. Okay, how many total red-eyed flies would there be? Well, that's this one, and this one. So 100, 200, and 50. All right, next we have human sex linkage. The trait that we're going to look at here for human sex linkage is hemophilia. Now, this could be any trait. It doesn't matter that we're looking at hemophilia. What matters is that we're looking at it on the X chromosome. So we could be talking about a color, a height, what doesn't really matter. We just happen to be talking about the trait called hemophilia. Now, you'll see here that, again, we're using our XY system. Okay, and they're actually showing us all of our possible genotypes. So first, we're going to write down our chromosomes. And our possible chromosomes are X with the dominant trait, which means not having hemophilia. You could have an X with a recessive trait, which means having hemophilia, or you can have a Y, and the Y does not get the allele at all. It doesn't have the genetics for it. Now, the genotypes that we could have is a capital H and a capital H, both on our X's, and we call this a normal female. Normal meaning they don't have hemophilia. The next one is 2 X's, one with a capital H, one with a lowercase. This is female because there's the 2 X's, but this one does not have the disease because they have 1 capital H. That means it's dominant. They don't have the disease. But they have this here, which means they're carrying that allele and could give it to their offspring. So we call this a carrier. And then we can also have XX. This means female. And because it has 2 of the recessive traits, this is female hemophiliac. That means somebody with hemophilia. Okay, we can look over here. We have XY, that means biological male, and with a capital H, that means normal bleeding. Okay, it doesn't lack that protein, so it does form blood clots like it's supposed to, so that it can seal up those wounds. So this is a normal male. And then X with our little h, which means hemophilia. So this is a male with hemophilia or a male hemophiliac. So now that we have this information, our first question says, show a cross of a man who has hemophilia with a woman who is a carrier. Okay, I'm going to slide this up so we have a little more space here. A man who has hemophilia, so man, that means X, Y, who has hemophilia. Remember, that's recessive. With a woman who's a carrier. So crossed with a woman who is a carrier. That means she doesn't have it, but she does carry one of them. Like this. First thing is to find our gametes. We have this one here and this one here. Then the gametes for here. There we go. Now notice this time I put the biologic male gametes over here and from the biological female up on the top. It doesn't matter which one you put where as long as the information inside is the right stuff. So then when I bring them back together, gotta start with my X's. I have this. Okay. I look here, 2 X's. That means female. It does have one of the big ones. Okay. And it has a small one. That makes this a carrier. Here I have 2 X's. That means female. But 2 lower cases. That means they have hemophilia. I'm going to abbreviate hemo. I have an X and a Y. That means male with a capital letter. That means normal. And I have X with a lowercase with a Y. So that is male hemophiliac. Okay, how many children will have the disease? Well, this is carrier, normal, hemo, and hemo. So that's 2 out of 4, or 1/2. The next question. A woman who is a carrier marries a normal man. Show the cross. Excuse me. So a woman who is a carrier. So a woman that is a carrier marries a normal man. So our cross. We find our gametes. Here's one and here's one. Here's one and here's one. Bring them together. Okay. I have 2 X's making this female, but I am homozygous dominant, which means normal. I have an X and a Y, that means male with a capital, that means normal. I have 2 X's, so that's female, 1 of each, so that's carrier. I have XY, so that is male. with the lowercase, that means this one has hemophilia. So how many children will have the disease? Well, I had normal, carrier, hemophiliac. So 1 out of 4. What is the sex of the child with the disease? Male. Okay, number 8. A woman who has hemophilia marries a normal man. So a woman who has hemophilia, that means she had to get 2 recessives, marries a man who is normal. Okay. Here's a gamete, here's a gamete. And I put the information back together. I have 2 X's for female, heterozygous, that means carrier. XY, so this is male with a little h, that means hemophilia. 2 X's, that is female, and this is a carrier. XY, that is male, and that is hemophilia. How many of their children will have hemophilia, and what is the sex? So how many will have the disease? Well, that was 2 out of 4, or 1/2. What is the sex of the child with the disease? Male. Now, we see male pop up in both of these. That's because girls only need to have 1 X with that functioning protein. Okay, so as long as there's 1 of these, you're fine. It's like there's a backup plan. However, biologic males only get 1 chance. Whatever is here is what they have. There's no backup plan. So our X-linked traits, when they are negative like this, they impact men far more frequently than they do women. Okay, we have a couple dealing with cats. So Calico. Now Calico cats are orange, black, and white kind of spotted. Cats have a white base coat, and then they can have black and orange. Now this multicolored is codominant. That means black and orange are going to be equally seen. We do not have one dominant over the other. And we are using the capital B for black. And we're going to use R for orange, because using O's is very confusing. What's a capital and what's a lowercase? Okay, so we're going to use B and R. Okay, males can be black and orange, but never calico. Show a cross of a female calico with a black male. So let's start with that. So those are our parents. Make sure I have space here. I have one that has a capital B, one that has a capital R. The dad was capital B. Okay, that means black. When I put them back together, I get this. Okay, if this is box 1, box 1 has 2 X's. That means this is female, and it has a black and a black. That means it's black. Make sure you can see that that's an A. So for our second box, we have an X and a Y. That means male. And we have a B, so that means this one is black. For our third one, we have X and X, making this one female. Ooh, made my E kind of big there. Okay, female. And this one has a B and an R. So I'm going to see black and orange. And we call that Calico. And for number 4, we have an X and a Y. That means this one is male. And we have a capital R, meaning orange. So from this cross, we have a female black, female calico, and male orange. Okay, so female and calico, we had 1 or 1 out of 4. Female and black, we had 1 out of 4. Male and black, we had 1 out of 4. Male and orange, 1 out of 4. Male and calico, that's 0. That's always going to be 0. Okay, because males get a Y. They don't get 2 X's. They get an X and a Y, so they can't be calico. And the last question, number 10, show a cross of a female black cat with a male orange cat. All right, so female, and it's black, but I know that if it has 2 different ones, it would be calico. So it must have 2 capital B's. Crossed with a male that is orange, so it must have an R. Do that cross. Here's a gamete, and here's a gamete, here's a gamete, and here's a gamete. When I fill them back in, 1 is going to be female, and I have a B and an R, so that means it is calico. Number 2, I have an X and a Y. That means this one is male, but only a capital B, so this one is black. For number 3, I have 2 X's. That means female. I have a B and an R, so that means calico. And number 4, I have an X and a Y. That means male, and I only have a B, so that means black. So in this case, I wind up with 2 out of 4 female calico and 2 out of 4 male black. So what is it asking for? What percentage of the kittens will be calico and female? 2 out of 4. You could also say 1/2. Oh, helps if I can move that down. There we go. And what color will the male cats be? Well, the male cats, they were all black. So that's problem set 7. Next up is problem set 8.